Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. So today I'm extremely excited to be able to bring you a first look at Project Zomboid's multiplayer. All of the footage you see in this video will be from a test build that I've been very lucky to have access to in advance of multiplayer coming to the beta branch for everyone. This is used for playtests ordinarily, but the devs have asked me if I was interested in giving you guys my impressions so far on this build, so that's what I'm going to do today. I've even managed to sneak in a tiny bit of the Louisville map, so keep an eye out for any areas that you don't recognize. Remember that all of this footage you're seeing may contain some bugs here and there might be periods of lower FPS, and work is still ongoing at the moment. If you enjoy the video, be sure to drop it a like and subscribe to the channel for much more Project Zomboid content to come. So let's get into it, starting with some of the positives from my experience in multiplayer so far. I want to focus on what I think will be the biggest thing on everyone's mind, and that's ultimately performance. To give you some context here, I use a 3070 graphics card and a Ryzen 3 800X for a CPU with 32 gigs of RAM. It's worth noting that I was of course recording as well, and I mean, I gotta say, performance was really just not an issue at all while I was playing. My FPS counter is at the bottom right of the screen through some of this footage, and for the most part it was above 100 at all times, only really dipping in the most chaotic of settings, like at a hospital where we went in guns blazing with multiple people and there's gotta be hundreds of zombies in one location. So in terms of how it ran for me, I was seriously impressed, and I can't see this being an issue for most players unless you're running a pretty low specification build. Now there's been a lot of talk about synchronization issues when it comes to multiplayer in the previous blog posts from the developers, but again it looks like for the most part that this is all fixed up now. I only experienced some sync issues with players that had quite high ping, or in similar instances when I experienced lower FPS when it was absolute chaos and there was just a lot happening around me. That said, this brings me to one of my very few major issues I encountered whilst testing. It wasn't necessarily the sync issues with players, but with vehicles. Essentially, when I wasn't in control of a vehicle and the vehicle was going over a certain speed, it would start to rubber band and potentially cause collisions with other vehicles because of that. This was compounded by the fact that if a vehicle did collide with another one, their physics got super weird in the event of a crash and would basically throw the vehicle around like a rag doll or launch it away from the crash at a really high speed. So a couple of larger issues that are definitely going to need to be solved before release, but the team are aware of them at this time and are working to fix them, so that's positive. Now that being said, this was really the only major problem that I encountered in my time spent testing the build, and this was over a good few hours of playtime at least. There were a couple of minor ones that I noticed, like some 3D item models were not quite matching the item that they were attributed to, like for example uncooked dough showing as the 3D model for bread that you've already cooked, and an issue where a zombie body could duplicate once in a while when you killed one, or where they would still be flailing on the ground and you could hear them but they were actually dead. But these aren't game breaking by any means and could be left in if it meant getting multiplayer to us for December for them to be fixed later down the line. And if you're not quite up to date, December is the current target for multiplayer being released, with the latest current estimate being January, just so that the team have time for Christmas holidays and then they can be there and hotfix the patch when it does come out. Overall, and this is the part where I know a lot of Zomboid fans are holding their breaths now, I was seriously impressed with the multiplayer test when I got to play it. It's smooth to run, there's some new stuff like the map drawing system and the new foraging system, as well as some other stuff that I won't spoil for you guys just yet. I want to keep that under my hat and let you guys experience it fresh for the first time, and the issues seem to be pretty minimal at the moment. Sure, it'll need some work to get to the finish line, but I really don't think December is an unrealistic target, having seen the build firsthand. Now, obviously, I'm not a developer. Hell, I'm not even a quality assurance tester either, but I am an avid Project Zomboid player, and at least from a few good hours of gameplay, the issues seemed minimal and the experience was smooth from start to finish. The next step for the developers from here is to test multiplayer at a larger capacity, which is 32 player tests to see if the server can maintain that level of player base and activity activity all at the same time. Hopefully we'll hear a bit more on that in the future, and I might even be able to update you guys. As mentioned this before, but if you aren't aware of the developers' Zomboid updates, they tend to cover what's going on with the game, and more recently cover the multiplayer status updates on a regular basis, so I'll leave a link for that in the description if you do want to keep on top of things. Now I'm going to slip in a little bit of footage at the end of this video of myself, some testers, and some of the Project Zomboid team making our way through a refugee camp just outside of Louisville. But before I do that, I do just want to settle some people's doubts by saying that I have in no way been sponsored for this video. These are my own opinions and this is not an ad. These are my genuine thoughts on the progress of multiplayer at this time. And I truly think that the next update is going to live up to expectations, if not exceed them, when the time is right. I'd like to give a special thank you to the development team for letting me get involved and having this fantastic opportunity for me and the channel. And finally, if you're interested in playing on my whitelisted server when multiplayer goes live, there's a link in the description to take you to the Patreon page where you can get whitelisted for our server for as little as £3 British. We're going to have a public server as well that you won't have to pay for, but if you would like to support the channel, do consider it. I look forward to seeing you guys in multiplayer. Have a good one, folks, and here's a little teaser of us going guns blazing in Louisville.